I know we still got about a half of agenda to go, at least. Maybe, well, they say it's 3/4. That's wishful thinking, you know. I do, while we're getting started back, Louis Haney is with us, our new Director of Solid Waste. Louis, you want to come up and give us an overview of your goals and objectives for the next year? Louis has been doing a good job for us a long time, but we wanted to just bring you up here and introduce you, and appreciate all you do, Louis.
All right, and I appreciate that. Appreciate Mayor Grandy having confidence in me to appoint me to this position, and to the commission for their support. And I look forward to working in the county. Grew up here, lived here all my life, and I'll do the very best I can for the county and the citizens of it.
All right. Thank you, Louis. All right, our next item is the County Mayor's Report. Mayor Grandy.
Thank you. This will be brief. You have the mayor's reports in the packet, and I'll be happy to answer any questions. One issue that's developed since we put this together, and that is the president's vaccine mandate. I'm sure everybody has heard a lot about that. As you know, the rules are in the process of being developed by OSHA, and for us that means TOSHA is going to be the responsible agent for enforcement. Just to date, we've had a number of discussions with various mayors around the state, and including some group calls. I want you to know that that I am, the regional mayors, and just about every mayor that I've talked to across the state of Tennessee is adamantly opposed to any vaccine mandate. And we'll be putting together a letter to go to the Attorney General and the Governor to that effect in opposition. It'll be a joint letter with all the mayor's signatures on it. If the commission would like to weigh in and create their own resolution, not necessarily being encouraged, but certainly that would add additional support. Every legislator I've talked to is also opposed to it. I don't think it has support from anyone that I've spoken with, but if the commission would like to weigh in on it, you know, that would be your discretion. I suspect it would hit for HEW next month and to the full commission. There's still time for that. We, at the end of August, closed out FY21, and Mitch is going to step up and just briefly go over the high-level summary of the financials unaudited for FY21. Mitch.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. You should have received a copy of the June financials via email. I think in that email to each of you, I indicated that if you needed a printed copy, please see Ms. Green and she can provide that. Also provided you with a summary pretty much by fund of the operations and how we perform, but just wanted to touch on some high-level things, and I promise I will try to keep this brief. Or else my fellow board members back here will run me out. We ended the year in really good position considering where we'd started, June of 2020, and not really knowing what the impact of the pandemic was going to be and whatnot. Of course, our revenue is highly property tax dependent, so that's fairly stable. We did have, and you'll see on a slide in a minute, we did have a better year than we had the year before. We actually have about a 4-year average now of about 1% increase in our property tax revenues, whereas this time last year I would have been telling you we're at about 0.75. So this past year was a good year. I believe it's about a 3% increase. But you can see our budgeted fund balances that we had as of the end of June, which were based on the budget amendments that we've made throughout the year, applied back against our original budget. And then you can see our unaudited fund balance numbers. And keep in mind that the 19 million in the general fund, there are restricted funds on that. That's not all free money. In other words, I don't have the number in front of me, but I want to say it's $3-4 million of that is restricted or unearned. We did have, I'll touch on this in a minute, the fourth line down, the ARPA, or the American Rescue Plan Act, which is a special revenue fund, which I know you all are aware of and you're debating on. You know, there was $12.5 million that we received at the end of May, May 24th to be exact. And the reason you don't see that as part of fund balance is because the revenue recognition on that is driven by the expenditures. So until we actually spend the money, we can't recognize the revenue because that ARPA money has to be used for specific purposes. However, the interest that we earn on $12.5 million is free money. Well, that's $189 for the 36 days. So, the trustees working hard, but at 0.05% earning rate, it's really tough to make anything in the interest rate market today. Huh? I don't know. I don't know where Rick pulled that one out. But anyway, as you can see, we do have, a good solid year, despite the pandemic. And I've got a handout, and Sherry's got them over here, and, when you're leaving, if you want a copy of this, put it there. I'll probably email it out to everybody as well, so you'll have it. But then you can kind of see how our variances occurred. For example, in the general fund, we had a $1.3 million favorable variance on our revenue, but then we had $2.8 million favorable variance on our expenses, which was primarily because we didn't, as we occasionally do, we didn't spend everything we budgeted to spend. And so that schedule's in there for you to look at when I hand it out to you.
Can you say that again, a little slower, a little louder?
What's that?
We didn't spend.
We didn't spend as much as we budgeted, which we should never overspend our budget. That's illegal. So, we did have departments that brought money back and did not fully spend. We had probably some lower staffing in some departments during the year. People were out for COVID and whatnot. But the revenues were down as well, and I'll touch on that in a minute. And really the biggest place that we had a drop in revenue was in the court system, which makes sense because they weren't in our fines and fees that we get from the courts. Well, we didn't have any courts going on, so there wasn't anything we were collecting. The big savings primarily for the highway fund had to do with Mr. Deacon. You can see on this schedule, bottom two lines, he was under budget on his revenue and under budget on his under budget on his expenses. The reason is that that's primarily driven by his bridge projects, and if he didn't spend it, he doesn't have the revenue. So that's why that thing's rolling the way it is. That's kind of the same schedule, just in a different format. This is it within the general fund. You can see this slide tries to depict where we actually get our revenues from. Local taxes, 56%, which is primarily property tax, and then you can see the county officials and fees that collect commissions, on their business activities. That accounts for about 15%. State of Tennessee provides us 13%, which is primarily our state prisoner board and our health department grants. This particular year, we did have a $1.9 million direct appropriation grant from the governor that was it falls straight to fund balance. The federal government, that's going to include CARES money that we received and spent, as well as our federal prisoner board. This schedule just really shows you the differences between audited revenues in 2020 and unaudited revenues in 2021. The middle bar there is the license, or excuse me, is the license, I can't read my schedule from here. Other local revenues. And so that was down from last year. Last year we had a little over $800,000 in revenue from the sale of the EPBM PATS property. So that was the primary contributor to that reduction. If you'll remember, it was actually an option payment, and then we closed on it this year, and they actually took title. This schedule shows how our expenses in our general fund are allocated. Again, close to 50% being in public safety. The courts, roughly 11%, the gray sliced on the bottom left. General government, which includes, which actually includes our trustee, our register of deeds, the mayor's office, the commission, that's about 12%. And then this schedule shows just FYI where our actual expenses were in FY21 compared to the audited numbers in FY20. And again, you can see that public safety was the one which was higher, which makes sense because they have the most people over there. Most of our dollars are payroll related. And so that's why you're seeing a bigger increase there based on the pay raises you initiated last year, including, this is the schedule I was talking about earlier. This is our property tax revenue, which is the property taxes that we've collected in all the county government funds, which is $47 million. Solid waste, highway, debt service, the general fund. It doesn't include the property tax that the schools collect, which of course is split with the city of Johnson City. But you can, that line is about a 1% growth rate from from FY17 to FY21. And as you can see, we went from 46 million to a little over 47. That was about a 3% increase. So it was a pretty good year, property tax wise. Scott Chapman and all the builders keep on keeping on. The solid waste fund, I'm going to blow through these real quick. Just a summary of where they actually ended up. The recycled materials, sale of the recycled materials was a little higher than we'd anticipated. We actually did move $150,000 from the general fund into the solid waste fund, which is what we'd budgeted. And I should comment that in the general fund, we actually did the same thing. We moved, if you remember, you budgeted transferring $1 million from debt service, which we moved into the general fund, as well as $750,000 from our capital projects and $250,000 from the education capital projects that was budgeted and moved into the general fund, which helped that fund balance for sure. If we hadn't had those things, if we had not have done those, made those changes and had the state money that came in, we would have been, trying to get back to our budget number, we would have been, you'll see in that first column, third line down, we budgeted a $987,000 deficit. So without those items, we would have been at $987,000. So those helped us out. Let me move back forward. Sorry. Let's see if there's, again, I mentioned this already, the ARPA funds, we've got $12.5 million, which is sitting in unearned revenue. The highway fund, again, the verbiage in here basically says we're $2.2 million under budget on our expenses, primarily due to, state bridge projects. So they hadn't been committed or moving forward. They'll pick up again this year. We may have some budget amendments to pick those projects up as Johnny gets them underway. Debt service funds performed as it should. Again, I mentioned the $1 million transfer to the general fund, but we made $7.7 million of principal payments, and we paid $5.4 million of interest. The trustee got $275,000, which came back to us, so in trustees' excess fees. Outstanding debt at June 30 was $142 million and some change. And you can see, this is our principal and interest payments over the next 15 years through 2037. And the blue bar, of course, being the interest, and as we pay principal down, that interest drops. This next slide actually shows what our outstanding principal will be as of today, right now, where we are. If we borrow no more money, then you can see the line where there is no debt in 2037. General capital projects. As I mentioned, we didn't spend everything we budgeted there. Just some projects didn't get started. But what we did spend, you can see here, we moved $750,000 to the general fund. Of course, we put $1 million into the sheriff's radio system. $100,000 plus into, really a couple $100,000 into the detention center and workhouse. Lewis has got a new roll-off truck that's probably going to get here in a year. That we put $185,000 in, and then some other upgrades. Our educational capital projects, the schools, as you may remember, you approved resolutions authorizing them to re-roof the Daniel Boone High School at just under $1.2 million. The original resolution was actually 2.2, but between the time that we got it approved and they bid it, they were able to do it for 1.2. So hats off to Philip and the guys over there trying to bring those costs down. Now the grade brick repair, if you remember, kind of went the other way. It was originally $300,000. We ended up at $765,000. And of course the Chromebooks, the school buses, and then that transfer to the general fund. The employee health and self-insurance fund, you can see where our medical claims were $3.8 million. We spent about $1.8 million in medications. The clinic operations ran about $367,000. Our administrative fees and primarily our stop-loss premiums were $796,000, which is Blue Cross Blue Shield administers all the claims. They pay them, so we're not doing it. And then we had some rebates and claim adjustment expenses that actually come back in and help reduce the medication and the medical claim cost. And that's it. So it's a pretty good year. The auditors are hard at work right now, and we expect that, I'm hoping that we'll have an audit report in November. It could be December before we see it, and we'll get everybody a copy of it then. Any overriding questions? Give me a call if you do, and then we'll see you next time. Thank you.
Thank you, Mitch. All right. Anything else, Mayor? Is good? Anything else for the mayor? All right. Our county attorney's report, Ms. Wilkins.
Thank you. I thought I would point out to you this month that we are in the season of the year where the county attorney's office works with the assessor's office and the trustee's office to review those performance reports of the companies that have pilots. And I know I bring that to you in the spring, and Alicia Summers brings you the Johnson City IDB pilot report in the fall. But this year, I thought I would just remind you in real time that that's what we'll be working on. When you get that report, remember how we tell you now how much the notice that the trustee's office sends out for those abated taxes. So I just wanted to point that out to you. If any of you have any questions about pilots or anything, this would be the season to call Teresa or me if you have any questions about how we do that or anything at all. That's what we'll be working on for the next month so that the trustee can issue that notice of payment to those companies by November 1st. That's really it, but I just wanted to kind of give you that update, giving you a layer every year about this process that we've put in place. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for Ms. Wilkins? All right. Seeing none, the Director of the Health Department, Director Hodgen.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I wanted to use my time here this evening with you to just give you a quick update on where we are with the COVID, as we've gotten acquainted on over the last few months, and then specifically with the Delta variant, and then call your attention to the boosters that are coming out that we've just started as of Friday, as a matter of fact. And then also have our Regional Medical Director, Dr. Kursky, with me in case we get somewhere down the road where we need his expertise on this kind of stuff. As far as numbers go, daily case rates are edging over. They're down over the last month. We started about a month ago looking at about 94 per 100,000 per day. 2 weeks ago, that number fell to 76, and as of the last 7 days, on average, it's down to 59. So it's trending in the right direction. It's still high, but we're getting it down. Positivity rates are in the same boat. We were mid-20s at the height of this thing. And then it's come down a bit, still high at 17%, but we're making progress. So good news on that front. As far as the vaccination effort, we're at 146,000 doses in Washington County. It's 51% of the county is now fully vaccinated. That puts us number 1 in the region, number 7 in the state, and above the state average by a good margin. The state average is about 44.5%. So we're still making good progress there, and we'll continue to do that work. Which brings me around to the major point I wanted to bring to you this evening, which is Pfizer Boosters. These have been, let me back up a second. We've been able to give third doses to immunocompromised folks for several weeks now. The booster is a different issue. These boosters are going to be based on timelines and the presumed natural waning of immunity over time. So we have been authorized to give just the Pfizer booster right now. If it's been more than 6 months since your last vaccination in that series, whether it's a 2-dose or a 3-dose, or in 6 months past that second dose, you're now eligible to have a booster shot if you so desire. And then those folks who have been authorized are people over 65 years and older, residents of long-term health care facilities, people 50 to 64 years old with underlying medical conditions. People 18 to 49 with underlying medical conditions may receive this booster. And people 18 to 64 who are increased risk of COVID exposure due to jobs and that kind of thing also may receive this booster. So it's a wide berth of folks that can come and get this booster if they so choose. And did I miss anything?
Sounds good.
Okay. And with that, I'll take your questions.
All right. Any questions for Director Hodgen? Commissioner Davenport?
Yeah, the first one, you said the Pfizer. So if you had the Moderna vaccine or the Johnson & Johnson vaccine, is Pfizer okay, or you have to wait on?
Right now, if you have a single dose of Pfizer, the booster's okay. There were some folks that, for one reason or another, got one of each, which was never the plan. But if you did get at least one dose of Pfizer, you can get this Pfizer booster. If you are like me and have a 2-dose Moderna in your history, this is not your booster. Moderna's working on that, and we expect that in a couple of weeks to come forward for FDA approval and that kind of thing. So right now, it's just Pfizer. Pfizer's the only authorization we have.
All right, second question, I know you're pushing flu vaccinations and things like that. When the vaccine first came out for COVID, you were not supposed to be vaccinated in the last
Right.
8 weeks, or I don't know the time frame. Is that true with the booster as well?
No.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? All right.
Thank you.
We appreciate you all coming. Thank you so much. Our Director of Schools report, Director Board.
Good evening. Shared with you just some written updates. If you have any questions, you have a lot of business in front of you. If you have any questions, I'd certainly be happy to answer those. Yes, sir.
Any more update on it?
Well, we did recently get some feedback. It's not approved. We did get feedback as far as they asked some more questions. We responded to their questions. They wanted some more data. In this case, it was specific to the HVAC. You know, it was just they wanted some data on air quality in the facilities that we were targeting. So we provided that data, CO2 levels and so on and so forth within the building. And we're waiting for the response. But I've been going back and forth with them, so that's a good sign. Not every district can say that.
There's communication.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you so much for putting the school tours together. Always appreciate doing that and going to the ones I can. When we go to the high schools, will we see the CTE programs, or will we be too short on time?
Well, and the high schools are a little different than the K-8s. They're each half day with the idea that, you know, there's many more programs to see. So the intent is, yes, in both high schools, you'll be able to see a good cross-section, including the CTE programs at both high schools. I believe that's
Great.
on the, it's later in October.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. All right, if there's no questions, just want to say thanks to, you know, members of the HUE and the Budget Committee, of course, the full commission for your work and the consideration you have in front of you. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
Director.
you.
Our Director of Schools for Johnson City, I haven't seen him here this evening. All right. The ARPA Committee, Commissioner Wheeler.
You'll find our minutes supplement two to your packet, and no action to report this evening.
Right. Any questions for Commissioner Wheeler? Had a good meeting?
Is there a date set for follow-up to that meeting? I can't remember.
We're waiting on the rules.
Oh, that's right.
Rules.
Okay.
All right. All right, the Beer Board, Commissioner Malone.
Yes, our minutes are on page 58. We did meet and approve one new application. It was for a new location for Holy Taco on the Kingsport Highway. So I'm excited about that since it's not far from my home, but I'll answer any questions if there are any.
Tacos and putt across the road.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Go hand in hand.
All right. Any questions for Commissioner Malone? Seeing none, our CIA report, Commissioner Carriger.
You have our minutes on page 59. I'd be glad to answer any questions if anybody has any. Seeing none, Mr. Chairman, we have Ms. Diana Cantler here with us tonight to give us an update on our TIF.
Thank you, Commissioners. I will be very quick because you have another hour probably on your schedule. This is in your packet. Just an overview of the TIF program that we have. Where do I point? Anywhere? Well,
Anywhere but there.
This is it, isn't this everybody's fear that, oh, no, that wasn't it. All right, here we go. There are key documents that, for every TIF program we do. We start with our redevelopment plan that has been in place since 2008. We have a development agreement, and usually that has some type of obligation for the developer to guarantee the TIF debt. We have a TIF loan agreement for a project, and then we also assign the TIF revenues from the Jcda to the TIF lender. Just a reminder of the TIF approval process. When we get a request, the Jcda staff look over it. We make sure that it follows the guidelines and policies of the TIF. We submit it to the TIF advisory board. That advisory board is made up of 3 Jcda members, 2 county commission representatives, and 2 city commission representatives. Once a project is looked at and examined by the TIF advisory board, then it will be evaluated by the Jcda, and depending upon the amount, it will come in front of the county commission. Anything over $25,000 needs to come before your approval. Then, following all those approval processes, the Jcda votes to approve a development agreement with the developer. The Jcda provides administration of the tax increment financing program. We do the annual calculation of increment. We make payments to the TIF lenders. We submit all of the annual filings to the state and the local officials. We facilitate the program. We work with the developers to make sure that they are following what they have put in writing in the development agreement, and then we follow up on current projects. And that's what I'd like to do tonight, just real quickly, to show you 2 or 3 of our projects that have just been completed or under completion. If you've driven down State of Franklin, you have seen the model mill. It is now the home for Summers Taylor headquarters. They have 30 corporate jobs in that building, as well as 520 company employees that relocated from Carter County to Washington County. ETSU alumni and foundation has been moved off campus into the mill. Baker Donaldson Law Firm has relocated there, and it's the future home of the Johnson City Jonesboro Chamber of Commerce. There is additional space left in that building if anybody's looking for Class A office space. That 4th floor is going to be the most beautiful space in all of Johnson City or Washington County to have an office. Another project that we're really thrilled with is 142 West Market Street. That is the home of Watauga Brewing Company. They have a restaurant, a brewery, and a rooftop dining area. They have over 35 employees, and probably one of the best things that happened along that block is other property owners have now improved their facades. Once one building got some of the work taken care of and became less blighted, then more property owners were willing to invest in their property, which is exactly what we want. The third project that I want to share with you was an infrastructure project. It's the Legacy Circle at King Commons that was part of the city's sesquicentennial celebration. There's a natural adventure playground that has become very popular with families at any time day. In the evening, you've got a lot of families that are coming downtown, and then they will go visit our restaurants and things like that and stay downtown, which is great. It's also been a fantastic resource for the library. They now have outdoor classrooms and will do outdoor, some education activities in the playground. The other part of that is the history circle that tells the history of Johnson City there. Wanted to let you know that in August, the Jcda voted to pay off the Johnson City Ventures TIF. That was not a debt that we had. It was actually the first TIF that was created, but it was a tax abatement. And so we offered them $175,000 to pay off their TIF debt. It's not a debt, but to pay off their TIF. It kept it was on our debt, so it looked like we had a higher debt than what we really did. So this was a really good use of some of the excess revenue that we had to pay off that. We also have University Edge. That was the second TIF project that was completed by the Jcda. It's also considered a TIF abatement. There's a little typo there. We actually do yearly payments of $200,000 to them. And then here's where we stand right now. Current Jcda debt, our current loan amount is $4 million, a little over $4 million, yeah, you got it. It's long. So our highest debt is for Northeast State for the downtown center at almost $4 million. But I will say, with the current amount that we receive each year between the city and the county, we could pay off all of our debt within a 5-year period. That's all I have. Thank you.
Any questions for Diana?
Thank you.
Thank you, Diana. We appreciate you coming down. Anything else, Commissioner Carriger? Oh, we do have a
Chairman, that concludes.
All right. Our committee on committee report, Commissioner Jones?
Pleased to offer that you can receive the minutes from the September 16th meeting with our attachments in supplement number 1, and bring to you the committee's work tonight, which is resolution number 210908, resolution appointing members to the standing committees of the Washington County Board of County Commissioners for fiscal year 2021-22. You can find that on page 70. That comes with a recommendation from the committee, and I'll bring that to you in the form of a motion.
Motion made by Commissioner Jones to approve the resolution, seconded by Commissioner Carriger. Questions or discussion? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, if you'll switch us to the voting screen, please. Go ahead and cast your vote and lock it in. Madam Clerk, if you'll announce the vote. 14 yes, 1 absent, and the resolution passes. Commissioner Jones, anything else? No, that's all. Thank you. Our next item is the Communication Task Force. Commissioner Huffine.
Yes, you'll see our minutes on page 72 from our September 2nd meeting. Now, just one call out there. I don't know if you've noticed or not, but on our agendas, we now have timestamps on there, thanks to our communication director. This should allow not only members of the commission, but members of the community, if there's a specific item you want to watch there, instead of watching through 2 hours, 3 hours, or 4 or 5 hours, whatever the night turns out to be, you can utilize this timestamp to go to that specific one. So I think that's a big enhancement for us moving forward. That's all I have unless there's any questions. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Any questions for Commissioner Huffine? All right. The Community Rescue Assessment Board, I know several commissioners serve on that. Mayor, have we reached a chairman on that board, or is there a report you would want to offer?
That group has not met since last meeting.
Okay, thank you. So we do have the minutes there of the July 22nd meeting. The Health, Education, and Welfare Committee, Commissioner Jones. We didn't meet this month. I've been known to do that, though, Commissioner
Just
Jones.
trying to help out where I can. You can see our minutes from the Hugh Committee meeting from September 2nd on page 76. And the first resolution that I bring to you all tonight is resolution number 210904, resolution authorizing reallocation and spending of education capital projects regarding upgrades to David Crockett High School and Daniel Boone High School football stadiums. That resolution is on page 138, but I believe we received a corrected resolution on the table tonight. And I think, if I got it right, there's one extra whereas the HUE at its September 2nd meeting, paragraph added to that resolution. It just designates that the HUE initiated the resolution and that Budget Committee followed. So this comes with a recommendation from HUE, and I bring it to you all in the form of a motion.
Motion made by Commissioner Jones, seconded by Commissioner Lott to approve the resolution. Commissioner Tester?
Mr. Chairman, my employer is providing professional design services for the school board on this work, so I'm going to abstain from the vote on this resolution and recuse myself from the discussion.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Call the question.
Question's been called. Madam Clerk, if you'll switch us to the voting screen, please. Go ahead and cast your vote and lock it in. We have 13 yes, 2 absent, and the resolution passes.
Second for your consideration is resolution number 210905, the resolution authorizing the Board of Education lighting upgrades for all Washington County school facilities with the funding provided by the Tennessee Energy Efficient Schools Initiative. You can find that on page 141. And this resolution also comes with a recommendation from the HUE, and I bring it to you all in the form of a motion.
Motion made by Commissioner Jones, seconded by Commissioner Malone to approve the resolution. Discussion or questions? Question's been called. Madam Clerk, if you'll switch us to the voting screen, please. Go ahead and cast your vote and lock it in. Madam Clerk, if you'll announce the vote, 13 yes, 1 no. Resolution passes with 1 absent. Commissioner Jones?
I would just say that I've really appreciated Mr. Boyd's communication with the HUE and just kind of working through some of the issues with some of the resolutions that you all heard today. It was really good conversations, and that's all I have. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Harris?
I've just got a question for Chairman or Commissioner Jones. I know several months ago there was some talk when environmental court, I know there was talk about hiring an assistant, and I hear that's coming to fruition. I don't know if I'm accurate on that, but I wonder where that's standing, and also where I know there was some talk about a possible office move for that office in the Justice Center, which would be more convenient with all the court cases they have. I didn't know, since the Election Commission now, I think, has decided not to move there. Is that still?
Sounds like a good question for the mayor.
Okay. Okay. Okay.
Mayor?
So far, there's been no plan to relocate Mr. France. I will say that in terms of that, the assistant for that project, interviews are scheduled for that position Wednesday. I believe we have 6 or 7 candidates. I believe it's 7 candidates. And so we should have an answer for that here shortly.
Commissioner Tester?
Mr. Chairman, I just wanted to, per the mayor's comments earlier about the vaccine mandate from the federal government, I've received quite a few emails from folks opposing that, and I think most of y'all have probably been getting those as well. So I would like to request that you consider a resolution on their agenda this coming month opposing that. If our chairwoman would put that on the agenda, I would appreciate that.
I'm happy to put it on the agenda. I would just caution that the emails we're getting are auto-generated. And in responding to constituents like I do every time I get an email, I have uncovered some people who had that email sent without their permission. So I think we need to be a little thoughtful about the making decisions based on constituent emails, particularly when they all look the same. But in any case, if you would request that we discuss that issue, I'd be happy to put on the agenda.
Anything else for Commissioner Jones? All right. Investment Committee report. Commissioner Carriger, you're the Vice Chairman of the Investment Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I just learned today that there is no chairman. So you are the chairman, vice chairman.
We need to get the chairman up there.
That'll take committee action, so you all have to work on that.
Right, our minutes are published for you on page 159. I'd be glad to attempt to answer any questions anybody might have.
All right.
Seeing none, Mr. Chairman, that ends our report.
Thank you. The Public Works Committee, Commissioner Davenport.
Yes, you'll see our minutes of our September 2nd meeting on page 160. I have to bring before you tonight in the form of motions both of these resolutions. First resolution is 210906, resolution adopting the Washington County road list.
Is that in the form of a motion, Commissioner?
Yes, that's in the form of a motion.
Seconded by Commissioner Fitzgerald. I also understand that this list has to be read aloud. No, just kidding.
You know what?
I don't know how many pages you want there, Commissioner Davenport, but we'll just divide that up. Yeah. All right. Any questions or concerns on the road list? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, if you'll move us to the voting screen, please. Go ahead and cast your vote and lock it in. Madam Clerk, if you'll announce the vote, 14 yes, 1 absent, the resolution passes.
Okay, our next resolution is resolution number 210907, resolution of support of proposed terms and authority to execute interlocal agreement concerning the Jonesboro Waterline Project. That's in the form of a motion.
Motion made by Commissioner Davenport, seconded by Commissioner Kate to approve the resolution. Commissioner Wheeler?
Mr. Chairman, I need to read a statement. I'm not financially interested, nor do I have any personal benefit indirectly or directly in this interlocal agreement. However, I do represent the town of Jonesboro as the town attorney, and that relationship may lead someone to infer that it affects my vote on the measure before this commission tonight. Therefore, I'm disclosing my representation of the town, and although my vote would be based on my independent and impartial analysis of the issue, on its merit, my decision tonight is to recuse myself from voting on this measure.
Thank you, Commissioner. Any other questions, concerns?
I guess I would like to thank everybody on the Water Task Force for doing this. Our attorney did a great job, and everybody with Jonesboro. Your all's leadership through this and just the willingness to get this done and not saying no. There was obstacles and there was things that come up, and we didn't always agree on things, but we never left the meeting. We never left the meeting on this is not going to get done. So thank you for your commitment.
Thank you, Commissioner Davenport. Commissioner Harris?
I just want to say again, Commissioner Davenport has put so much time into this, and I think this is one of the most important things, that I've voted on, because when I got elected commissioner, this was one of my top priorities, was seeing us get some water in these rural areas. And I'll tell you, Commissioner Davenport, I think, has done a phenomenal job leading that group. And what really impresses me about him on there is he don't want the credit. He don't want anybody getting the credit. It's everybody working together. And when I went to the highway meetings when it's been brought up, that just, to me, that's the way you should do things. He's not wanting to get anybody a feather in their hat. Everybody's working together. I really appreciate him. I think without him leading that group, I don't think we could have got this far. So I think we're moving in a real good direction.
Thank you. And it's everyone.
All right. Question's been called. Madam Clerk, if you'll switch us to the voting screen, please. Go ahead and cast your vote and lock it in. Madam Clerk, if you'll announce the vote. 13 yes, 2 absent, and the resolution passes.
That's all I have, Chairman, unless someone has some other questions.
All right. Seeing none, our next item is the Purchasing Commission. Commissioner Lott, are you the chairman of the Purchasing Commission?
I am.
I see that you have a resolution for us.
Well, who was vice chairman? I wasn't there, so.
Well, let me just go ahead and take care of that then.
Okay.
That'd be resolution number 210909. It was a resolution authorizing the disposition of Washington County surplus property on gov deals or recycled. That's on page 255.
What I read.
Have a motion? Davenport
I'll bring up the form of a
made the motion. How about a second, Commissioner Lott? Davenport's how you got you on that one.
Yeah.
All right, so we have a motion second. Commissioner Tester? Oh. Question? Question's been called. Madam Clerk, if you'll switch us to the voting screen, please. Go ahead and cast your vote and lock it in. Do we need to recycle you, Commissioner Wheeler? There we go. Madam Clerk, if you'll announce the vote, 14 yes, the resolution passes with 1 absent. All right. The Redistricting Committee report, we did elect officers. We will be bringing back some information this month to the committee for their consideration as we move through this redistricting. It's going to be a little bit of time and effort, but we got to get done as soon as possible. So hopefully we'll be bringing back more information to you this month to consider. And that's on page 258. Is there any questions on the redistricting committee? All right. Our next is our Rules Committee report. Commissioner Tester.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Our minutes are on page 259, and we had a really good discussion about our annual budget process, and we're going to meet again this coming month and hopefully work up a rule on that. Had some good ideas generated at the last meeting. There was supposed to be an attachment to our minutes that didn't make it in there, so y'all are welcome that there wasn't 10 or 11 more pages to read. But I'll try to make sure that gets emailed to you, and since we're going to continue the discussion next month, we'll probably put it in there then. So, anybody have any questions? That's all I have, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you. Right, our next one is the Washington County Owned Property Committee. Commissioner Carriger.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Our minutes are on page 261. I'll be glad to answer any questions if anybody has. Seeing none, we'll move on to our resolutions. First one is on page 300. It's resolution number 2109-10, resolution transferring one delinquent tax sale property to Appalachian Service Project, Inc. for the purpose of constructing or restoring a dwelling for disadvantaged owner-occupied residential use. And that comes with the form of a motion that I'll make.
Motion made by Commissioner Carriger, seconded by Commissioner Ford to approve the resolution. Questions or discussion? Question's been called. Madam Clerk, if you'll move us to the voting screen, please. Go ahead and cast your vote and lock it in.
Yeah, put it on the table, Mike.
Right. Madam Clerk, if you announce the vote, 14 yes, the resolution passes with one absent. Commissioner Carrier?
Mr. Chairman, we got another resolution on page 303. It's resolution number 210911, resolution transferring one delinquent tax sale property to Appalachian Service Project, Inc. for the purpose of constructing or restoring a dwelling for the disadvantaged owner occupied residential use, and I'll make a motion that we approve it.
Motion made by Commissioner Carriger, seconded by Commissioner Fitzgerald to approve the resolution. Question's been called. Madam Clerk, if you'll switch us to the voting screen, please. Go ahead and cast your vote and lock it in. Madam Clerk, if you'll announce the vote, 14 yes, the resolution passes with one absent. Commissioner Carriger?
Page 306 has resolution number 210912, and again, we're transferring property to Appalachian Service Project for them to build and own. And that comes with a form of motion for approval.
Motion made by Commissioner Carriger, seconded by Commissioner Huffine to approve the resolution. Question's been called. Madam Clerk, if you'll switch us to the voting screen, please. Go ahead and cast your vote and lock it in.
I'm not punching. Yes,
Push harder.
I am.
There you go. That'll be 14 yes. Resolution passes with one absent. Commissioner Carriger?
Mr. Chairman, we go to page 309, has the next resolution, number 2109-13. Again, it's resolution transferring one delinquent tax sale property to Appalachian Service Project. And I make a motion that we approve.
Motion made by Commissioner Carriger, seconded by Commissioner Malone to approve the resolution. Question's been called. Madam Clerk, if you'll switch us to the voting screen, please. Go ahead and cast your vote and lock it in. Madam Clerk, if you'll announce the vote, 14 yes, the resolution passes with one absent. Commissioner Carriger?
Mr. Chairman, we have our next resolution, it's on page 312, resolution number 21-09-14. Again, resolution transferring one delinquent tax sale property to Appalachian Service Project. And that comes in the form of a motion for approval from me.
Motion made by Commissioner Carriger, seconded by Commissioner Wheeler to approve the resolution. Discussion or questions? Question's been called. Madam Clerk, if you'll switch us to the voting screen, go ahead and cast your vote and lock it in. Madam Clerk, if you'll announce the vote, 14 yes, the resolution passes with one absent. Commissioner Carriger?
Mr. Chairman, our next resolution on page 315, is resolution number 21-09-15, resolution accepting the feasibility study associated with redevelopment of the Ash Street Courthouse building and supporting Governor Lee's budget project. And I'll make the motion to approve.
Motion made by Commissioner Carriger, second by Commissioner Williams. Now, do we have someone here tonight that was going to speak on this? I knew it was a feasibility study, isn't that correct? Yes. Ms. Mason?
I'll be super brief because you all have a lot ahead of you. Angie Fellers-Mason, Executive Director of the Heritage Alliance. Thank you all, first of all, for trusting us with your really amazing historic building. Last year, you approved us putting it on the National Register, which was successfully done, which is a great honor to have. And then you also approved a feasibility study for the structure with matching funds to come from the Johnson City Development Authority, which they did. And then also the South Side Neighborhood Organization contributed $1,000 to the study as well. So this really was a joint project that just shows the community interest in this very historic building. It's the only civic building in that corridor, so it's a point of great importance. And for a moment in its history, it was like the only building of its kind in Tennessee. And it's still a beautiful example of Beaux Arts architecture, which you really only find also at Mountain Home here in Johnson City. So there's not a whole lot of that style left in the area. You have the study. Clark Nexon is the one who completed the study. Ken Ross with Clark Nexon is still out in the audience here this evening, I believe. Real quickly, I just wanted to cover a couple highlights, and then I'm happy to answer any questions if you have them. The new roof helped a lot. It really kind of helped save the building. The exterior is in great condition. It has beautiful bones, does not need a lot of exterior work besides the cornices need to be fixed, which could potentially be a safety hazard, so there may need to be a fence, but minimal exterior renovations needed. The report covers how the building expanded with time to gain the footprint that it has today. Now, inside, of course, is where you need the majority of the work. Now, the good news is that the windows are mostly in great shape, and you can take historic windows and make them energy efficient. It just really needs reglazing. So the windows are in good condition. And then when you get inside the building, which that picks up on page 14 of, I'm not sure what page it is on your docket, but it's page 14 of the study. It talks about the floors. There's some beautiful historic marble in the entryway of the building. There is some asbestos tile and other materials like that we don't use for building anymore because they're hazardous that will need to be removed. So one of the earliest steps that needs to be done is a environmental study of the building. That was not done as part of the feasibility study. It would need to be separate. But when you know going into a historic building, you've got stuff you're going to have to take out. What's really cool is that inside on the ground level that was 911 is that those walls were built around the original interior. So selective demolition should reveal to an extent one of the earlier interpretations of the building, one of the earlier footprints, probably the 1930s, it's a guess. Unfortunately, we could never track down the original blueprints for the post office that was built in 1910. We have gone round and round with every federal archive, and it didn't help it was COVID, and most of them were closed or understaffed. But as of now, no one has the original plans, but we do have, starting in the 1930s, those plans. On the second floor, which there's pictures of on page 16, there's this beautiful woodwork from the 1930s that really can be preserved for various uses, but there's all this beautiful woodwork and transom work that I think would really add to people wanting to come and be a part of the building. Of course, it's going to need all new electrical and plumbing. That's a given to be brought up to code. You can put an elevator in the historic building. That's covered on page 19. You don't necessarily have to increase the footprint of the building to do it, although that would be another option. But it is completely viable to put an elevator in there, make it ADA compliant. And then, really, it talks about restoration strategy. That would be kind of the determining factor, what period you want to take it back to. The best suggestion would be the entryway kind of recapture that early 1900s glory with the little bit of info we know. And then really upstairs is already kind of set in time in the 1930s and 40s, and it's really beautiful. There's good suggestions for energy use. You've got a lot of good a lot of good space on the roof. You maybe could do some solar energy there. So there is a way to make, less of a carbon footprint, more green energy into a historic building that's easily doable. Now, of course, the bottom line, you've got the budget that starts at the bottom of page 23 and goes on to page 24. It does come in at the $5 million budget mark to make the building, adaptable to modern public use. As you all know, that has been allocated in the governor's budget at $5 million, so it is doable within that price range. And of course, the market's fluctuating right now, but that is an achievable goal to get the building restored for public use. And then potential future use starts up On page 25 and then page 26, this is just one potential future use. We do know that the $5 million, there was talk of an economic incubator, it's kind of a broad term, but there is, we know this building is probably going to need to be mixed use. It was a civic building. Per the deed, it still has to have some type of public use or it reverts to the federal government, but that's a pretty broad term. But you have space here to use, should you choose to do like incubator space and have a space for public events. It'll just be a matter of how do you keep the private and public separate. And then you also have the options in like your restored historic spaces if you wanted to do a little museum or something like that. Now, there are suggestions of if you take like the courtroom on the second floor and divide it up into little individual offices, that's not a good use of that historic space. But if you keep it a big open room and have it as like a maker space or an incubator, an idea space, or even a board meeting room, that's still a good use of that space because it's still that intended open room. But then when you get to the basement of the building, it's kind of divided up down there anyhow, so that could be potential office space. So there's lots of potential uses for it to continue serving that civic purpose. People have floated the idea of a voting space or something like that. So again, we know it's probably going to need to be a mix of public and private because someone's going to need to pay the bills for this building, but that's easily achievable. We presented to the Southside Neighborhood Organization a week ago since they helped fund the study, and the community is really interested and invested in this building as they are in the entire West Walnut Corridor. And we actually put together a little supplemental packet of proposed uses based on their ideas and feedback. So we'll be emailing that to you all as well. But it is a beautiful historic space, and we're really excited about to see what it's going to become. And as you go through the process, since it is on the National Register, Dr. Kennedy, Bill Kennedy, he works here in Jonesboro. He's on the Tennessee Historical Commission. He's a great resource when it comes to restoring historic buildings. I know he'd be happy to make sure you all, whatever renovations we're planning for the building, stayed in line with those sort of Secretary of the Interior standards for historic buildings. I mean, he loves that building too. So thank you again for entrusting us with your beautiful historic building, and I'm happy to answer any questions. And Ken's here too with Clark Nixon.
Down that most modern edition that was used for the call center?
Well, that's not our decision to make outside of the study, but the study suggested you could take it off. In fact, most of the stuff that was put in for 911 is kind of like fake walls and stuff that could be easily removed to get back to more of a historic nature of the building. We just made our best suggestions, so. All right, thank you all.
Commissioner Jones?
Just a big thanks to Ann, and just to point out that that feasibility study was a shared product of the county, the Jcda, and the Tree Streets community that put money in to do that study. I spoke with the facilities manager at the city today, who was responsible for executing some of the RFP and choosing someone to do the renovations on this building. And he indicated that that feasibility study was very helpful to Johnson City in thinking that through. I just have a question for Attorney and a couple of comments. Ms. Wilkinson, is this resolution in front of us primarily symbolic, or does it authorize our mayor to act on our behalf or move this project forward in any formal way?
The resolution is specific to accepting this feasibility study, which you participated in funding. And then the second part was there was a motion in that committee to endorse the opportunity to work with Johnson City. So it's a broad statement there, but when you said move something through in the ordinary way, I'm not totally following that, but this is more of a, you've accepted a feasibility report, and then you have endorsed this opportunity to work with Johnson City, recognizing that the $5 million in the state funding was presented to Johnson City. So
well, more specifically, I noticed in the newspaper last week that the city had signed an interlocal agreement that will be eventually vetted on the county side. So it'll be a city-county agreement about how this property, which is county property, can be renovated to the tune of $5 million by the city. So would the mayor be able, based on the resolution we're signing tonight, would the mayor be able to sign that interlocal agreement?
This resolution does not authorize the execution of any agreements. It's endorsing the opportunity to work with Johnson City on that funding through the grant.
Thank you. I just want to bring to everyone's attention that this building is of significance. It's an opportunity for the county to have a presence in our downtown, and there could be space in that building that serves functions that the county needs to use. The Election Commission was raised, another one that I've heard is the clerk's office. When the city has done community meetings, and there have been many, to ask the community what they want on Walnut Street, the people who live around Walnut Street want goods and services. And so that would be consistent with something that the county might like, the citizens might like. I'm just putting that idea out there, not because I'm wed to it or I think it's the best idea, but just to help you all think about what this building could be, since the county has a vested interest in it. And I feel like this opportunity to work with the city on this building and make it something that's both, super useful to the Walnut Street corridor and something the county can be proud of, is so important that we ought to spend more time looking at it and paying attention to it. But that really straddles a need for us to work with the city on moving pretty quickly. This $5 million is awesome. It's really great that the city got it, but it has to be spent completely by the end of June. And if we don't get it spent, they give it back. And I talked with Mr. Peterson today, and he said that he's confirmed that there's no allowed extension on those funds. So I guess what I'm asking us to think about is helping the city move forward with some expediency and getting that interlocal agreement into place. I think the county should look at it through its normal vetting process and look at it closely. But also, we should be learning more about what the city's thoughts are about the endpoint use for this building and bringing community input, including our input, to the table. So more communication about what the endpoint is. From what I understand, the $5 million could go toward just bringing the building up to safe and usable status, and not necessarily to a specific purpose. So at the end of a year, we'd have a usable building, but we still might have to spend money moving walls and making it to something specific. So anyway, I close my comments just to say, everybody keep this on their radar. We want to move it fast, we want to help the city, but we also need to get timely communication and really make the opportunity to have this project be a collaborative project as best as possible.
Commissioner Jones, you bring up a good point on that interlocal agreement. I'm sure it will be coming back to this committee. I know it is coming back to this committee for your all's next meeting, I think. So we'll be looking forward to that coming through the County-Owned Property Committee meeting as well this month. That'll be something else for your agenda, Commissioner Kerrigan.
Appreciate it, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
Keep adding them.
All right, so we have a motion and second. Commissioner Malone?
Just a couple points of clarification, I guess. So with what we're approving tonight, it does not approve the interlocal agreement, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Because I was surprised when I read in the paper that there was an interlocal agreement, and so I had reached out and was able to get a copy of one, and I do think there are some needed, perhaps, revisions to it or some things that need to be addressed. The interlocal agreement specifically references terms and conditions associated with the state grant. And I would be interested in knowing what those terms and conditions are. And I think Commissioner Jones specifically referenced a collaborative approach, and I would welcome that. I think for downtown revitalization, I think this is an important property, and I look forward to seeing it move forward. But I keep getting, if you ask one person how it's going to be used, you get a different answer. And yet I have seen multiple city documents, evidence, in fact, our mayor shared with me one tonight that specifically says that the building will be repurposed as an incubator, accelerator for rural health research business opportunities. That's fairly broad, as I think Ms. Mason said, but I don't remember the commission or the county at all having a collaborative approach to how this building would be used. And I think Commissioner Jones said services. When I think of services, I think of things like early voting. That was in the feasibility study. I know parking's an issue, but early voting, we'd lease space for the trustee and for the county clerk in Johnson City. It'd be nice if rather than leasing space from somebody else, perhaps it was in a county-owned building. So I'm open to all kinds of ideas and suggestions about how this building could be used once it's improved, but I would hope that it can be a collaborative approach. Everything I see now seems to be saying perhaps the city's already made the decision about how it's to be used, and so I hope that's not the case. Thank you.
Commissioner Davenport?
So, does anybody have any concerns of this running over budget? Are we committing $5 million and stopping? I mean, we're getting ready to talk about some overages and stuff, but we're talking here $5 million. If whatever $5 million gets us, $5 million gets us. Is that? This is money from the government. Yes.
We're not making any financial commitment at all.
But what I'm concerned about is we get to $5 million and say, you know what? We've still got this big hole here, and this building's going to fall down unless we add another 30% to it. So I need $1.5 million to do that. Does anybody have a concern there? Okay.
Mr. Burleson's here. I think him and Clark Nixon have the building. I know, if you'd like to hear from one of them. Oh, that's right. I'm sorry, Tommy. I was making you do something else. Oh, it was Burwell. I'm sorry.
I'm Ken Ross with Clark Nixon, and the city put out RFPs for a design-build team on doing the design and construction for that facility, and we, along with Burwell Construction, were selected for that. There is $5 million is all that there is from the city, from the grant that they got, and we will design it around the $5 million. We feel like we can meet the needs of that building within that $5 million at this time. But we are already working on it. We have several meetings this week with the mayor and Pete Peterson with the city commission, all of the engineers, the contractor, and various people to try to get all of the input we can get so that we can meet the budget of that money. It's going to be difficult to spend it by June the 30th, first time we ever had that problem, but we are working to get that done as well.
Commissioner Wheeler?
Ken, what's the extent of what'll be left to build out? I assume, without knowing what it's going to be used for, you won't be completely building it out.
We hope that we'll be completely built out. Decisions are going to have to be made, I guess, by the county and the city as to what tenants will be in that building or who would be in that building. Right now, all we can do is design it for so many tenants as far as the heat and air conditioning, zoning it, with the thermostats, and try to firewalls we put in for separation between the tenants. So, but we will we're replacing all of the HVAC units, rewiring it, replumbing, taking care of the exterior, bringing the interior back to the original, and trying to determine where we will have tenants. But that, whoever, the county and city will have to make that determination who the tenants are.
How soon will you need that kind of information before it impact having to go back and redo things? Like, for instance, if a decision's made down the road somewhere that we're going to relocate some county offices in.
It really needs to be determined now. Otherwise, we have to make assumptions that maybe on the first floor, there's 3 tenants, and we say that each tenant will have so many square feet. If we don't get the actual tenants, we've got to make assumptions on how to divide that building. You can make some changes down the road as far as maybe the size of the tenants, but we need to know right away because it affects all of the mechanical, the electrical, the plumbing, and structural perhaps.
Has county-owned property reviewed the proposal that was submitted to the RFP?
It will
Has
not.
it been provided to you all?
No, this is money from the governor, and I guess my feeling was, you know, it's county-owned property and the governors won't put $5 million into it, we would be, I think, short-sighted not to take his money.
So we do need to decide what to do with it.
I agree.
And make sure it doesn't go over, that we're not left with an extra million out there hanging out. That we gotta come up with.
The rest of the building.
Make sure it's not a $6 million.
When I toured as a commissioner, and some of you were there, we discussed it being a museum, that they were going to close the museum down on ETSU, and maybe this would be a good place for it.
Commissioner Malone?
Well, to Commissioner Williams' point, part of the problem, I think, with the museum and just a lot of potential uses in general are, at some level, they need to be self-sustaining because there's going to be expenses associated with that building. And so, you know, there's a museum that's free of charge. How would it handle utilities and things like that? And I just wonder, I would welcome the chance to see this money spent in our county, and you know, this is a need. Part of me says there might have been more pressing needs that we could have gotten the governor to work on instead, but I just wonder if there's not a simpler, easier, better way to do this. At some level, it sits inside the city, it's county-owned property, and that's not going to change. It needs to be used for public use, but part of me says we could turn it over to the city. I think they're better equipped, not give it to the city, but turn it over from a renovation and even future use standpoint, turn it over to them. They, you know, they protect us, if you will, or provide assurances relative to cost overruns or relative to any liability. One of the things in the interlocal agreement, it seemed to imply that even though the city may be controlling the project during construction, the county's still liable for anything that goes wrong there. So I didn't like that. So I just wonder if there's not a simpler way to structure this and to say, hey, city, it's yours, take it, run with it, and let the county get out of the way. I know I mentioned collaboration earlier, as did Commissioner Jones, but I just wonder, especially in light of the time frame, if there's not a simpler way to do this and to somehow let the city take it and run with it, but in doing so, they offer certain assurances and protections to the county. And that's something that the mayor and our county attorney can consider. But the way we're doing it seems cumbersome at best. Thank you.
The one thing that will help as far as the cost of the building, it is a design build, so the contractor's hired already. He can, as we develop plans, he will be pricing it as we go to keep it within the budget. And I think some of you know that there's restrictions in the deed as to how the building can be used and so forth that will affect that.
Commissioner Harris?
When you're getting $5 million, it's hard to say no, and but nobody has a plan for it. I mean, what do we do? I think it ought to go back to the committee, and they come up with, if it's a city have a plan, or we have a plan, I mean, we need to have a use for it. And just like he said, if we're going to sit here and approve it tonight, then we're going to change. You don't know what the use is.
No.
Nobody's told you. I mean, somebody has to make the decision, so I don't think we should vote on anything, let the committee, and I think Commissioner Carragher is probably the best to work with the city and come up with a plan. He's the chairman, so I believe he can work it out and get a plan for this thing, you know, so, and have a plan for our next month's meeting. I'd make a motion, we send it back to the committee to come up with a plan.
Mr. Chairman, I'm not
Com-
comment. No comment.
Yes, Commissioner.
You know, you've got a gift coming from the governor. And I'm not sure how he's gonna look at it when he sees that, well, they don't want my $5 million, I'll just take it somewhere else. As far as our obligation, we have not obligated one penny of county money on that building. And as Mr. Ross said, they've got till June of '22 to spend $5 million. And that sounds like a good problem to have. So, I understand everybody's concerns, but I think, time is of the essence. And it would be kind of embarrassment if we look like we're ungrateful to the governor for his money.
I'm definitely not saying I'm ungrateful, I just feel like that we ought to have a plan. I mean, we ought to know what we're gonna do before but the money's great, but I think we've got some definitely legitimate concerns, what Commissioner Davenport said, but I wish it could go back, and I think you're the man who could work it out and have a plan.
I appreciate your confidence.
I think we're happy to vote yes then, but I couldn't vote yes tonight.
Mr. Ross, let me ask you, if we delay the month, I mean, all that does is just put your time frame.
If you delay it a month, it delays the design a month and delays the construction, and we're going to be very hard pressed to spend the money and get it built by that time.
Commissioner Will?
Mr. Chairman, my question is ultimately, what does this do? Because we're not authorizing any expenditure for the design anyway. They can move forward with the design. This doesn't affect that. So my question is, what are we voting on tonight? What does this do? I mean, you don't usually accept a feasibility study. There's no need to vote on that. And on the the rest of it, I don't understand. If it's necessary, I'm going to vote for it. I want to, but I don't understand what's necessary about it. I don't understand what this does, rather than the interlocal agreement, which is going to come next month. This will not slow them down on design because they've got the money and control that.
Commissioner Carrier?
Mr. Chairman, I'll try to put it in just, layman's terms, what we're doing, endorsing the idea that the governor will give us $5 million for that, to do improvements on that building. And I'll defer to the county attorney if I have misspoken.
That is correct. That was the motion that was in county-owned property, was an endorsement of the collaborative effort to work with Johnson City and the funding from the state.
Through the request for documents that was done last week, I mean, the mayor's already written a letter to the governor thanking him for considering it and asking for it on behalf of the whole county. So, and it's in the state budget for the year. What's the endorsement for? I mean, it's already budgeted. We're going to.
This may shock everybody, politics, I would guess.
Politics with the, I mean, does the governor think we're not agreeing on it? Does somebody?
You'd have to talk to him.
I don't understand why we need to endorse it since it's already done.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I can call the question. We've got a motion, and I think it's time to, vote it up or down.
Is there any objection to calling for the question?
I don't think anybody seconded my motion.
That's what I was saying. Point of order, nobody seconded it.
Well, this is a motion.
Right. This has a motion.
We not have a motion and a second on the floor? Oh, okay. I don't know which motion we was going to make another. Was making another one or going to amend it, or, I mean, I don't know if there's much jump left in this rabbit here.
I know question's been called, but I'm going to vote on it because the chairman asked us to do it.
All right. Commissioner Jones?
Well, I'm sorry, question's been called, but to Commissioner Harris' point, and I appreciate him kind of pushing us a little bit, I think all those questions will get worked out in the interlocal agreement, which we'll see in county-owned property next week, and you all will see at the end of next month. That's where we get the details worked out. And I'm really looking forward to that conversation and getting a better sense of what we're looking at and how we can all work together, if that's the fastest, best way, as Commissioner Malone mentioned. So I think that's coming. But my understanding is even us waiting until the end of October to execute the interlocal agreement is slowing things down. And that's just the way it has to go, because I feel like we need to engage our process. But I'm glad everybody took some time with this. I know it's really important to the people around me, and they're watching, so.
But the interlocal agreement hasn't been submitted even to our committee.
No.
It's not a matter of we're not acting on it. It's
That's
still
right.
not been submitted.
That's right. We have not gotten it.
And
Yeah, I think that's important.
it'll be back on the committee agenda, back to the committee agenda this month.
Right.
We just received it late, and it was past the agenda cutoff.
Right.
Yeah. Madam Clerk, switch us the voting screen. We've called the question on this 3 or 4 times. Madam Clerk, if you announce the vote, 14 yes, the resolution passes with 1 absent. And Commissioner Carriger, do you have?
Mr. Chairman, we have one more action live. That's on page 354, resolution number 2109-16, resolution approving renewal of the lease agreement between Washington County and Upper East Tennessee Human Development Agency Head Start Program at the Old Harmony School. And I will comment that your county-owned property committee has been out to inspect that building, and it that looks really good. They've keeping that building up. So that comes with a motion from me for approval.
Motion made by Commissioner Carriger, seconded by Commissioner Light to approve the resolution.
Call the question.
Question's been called. Madam Clerk, if you'll switch us to the voting screen, go ahead and cast your vote and lock it in. Madam Clerk, if you'll announce the vote, 14 yes, the resolution passes with 1 absent. Commissioner Carriger.
That ends our presentation, but I will note that Commissioner Jones reminded me that your county-owned property inspected these properties in the rain at great sacrifice, but, you know, whatever it takes to get the county's business done.
That's right. All right, that was a good report. We got a lot of business done there. Now, the Washington County Safety Committee minutes are included in your packet. Charlie Baines, he served as chairman of this and done a great job, and I don't think we've hired anybody yet, have we, Mayor, for that position? So we'll be waiting to see how that goes, and that's the minutes of that meeting is on your August 12th meeting is page 366. The Water Task Force, Commissioner Davenport.
Yes, you'll find our minutes on the last page of your packet tonight. So any questions?
All right, seeing no questions, we'll move right along to the Budget Committee report. Commissioner Wheeler.
September 8th meeting are found on page 369 of your packet, and a special call meeting on September 17th is found on page 376 of your packet. We do have several resolutions for you to consider this evening, the first being resolution number 210917, a resolution amending fiscal year budget 2021-2022 regarding bonus reclassification, found at page 381 on your packet. This comes as a recommendation from the committee, and I move for its approval.
Motion made by Commissioner Wheeler to approve the resolution, seconded by Commissioner Malone. Discussion or question?
Call for the question.
Question's been called. Madam Clerk, if you'll switch us to the voting screen, please. Go ahead and cast your vote and lock it in. Madam Clerk, if you'll announce the vote, 14 yes, resolution passes with 1 absent. Commissioner Wheeler?
Next resolution is found at page 384 of your packet. The resolution amending fiscal year budget 2021-2022 regarding change in fiscal minimum salaries. This comes as a recommendation from the
Motion made by Commissioner Wheeler, seconded by Commissioner Kate to approve the resolution. Discussion or questions?
Call for question.
Question's been called. Madam Clerk, if you'll switch us to the voting screen. Go ahead and cast your vote and lock it in. Madam Clerk, if you'll announce the vote, please. 14 yes, the resolution passes with one absent. Commissioner Wheeler?
The next resolution is found on page 387 of your packet, resolution number 210919, resolution authorizing $150,000 for engineering services for the HVAC replacement at the historic courthouse. This comes as a recommendation from the committee, and I move for approval.
Motion made by Commissioner Wheeler, seconded by Commissioner Carriger to approve the resolution. Discussion? Seeing none, question's been called. Madam Clerk, if you'll switch us to the voting screen, please. Go ahead and cast your vote and lock it in. Madam Clerk, if you'll announce the vote, 14 yes, the resolution passes with one absent. Commissioner Wheeler?
The next resolution is found on page 389 of your packet, resolution number 210920, resolution providing for redemption and payment of $1,385,000 general obligation school bond series 2013 found taxable, $2,630,000 rural school bond series 2013, and $5,520,000 of general obligation capital outlay notes series 2013, dated September 13, 2013, in Washington County, Tennessee. This comes as a recommendation from the committee, and I move for its approval.
Motion made by Commissioner Wheeler. Do I have a second? Second by Commissioner Kate to approve the resolution. Discussion?
Call for question.
Question's been called. Madam Clerk, if you'll switch us to the voting screen. Go ahead and cast your vote and lock it in. Madam Clerk, if you'll announce the vote, 14 yes, the resolution passes with one absent. Commissioner Wheeler?
Chairman, our next resolution is found on page 393 of your packet. It's a resolution authorizing amendments to terms of the interlocal agreement and leases, other documents related to Jonesboro proposals approved in resolution number 191020 and amended with resolution number 2912. Chairman, I need to read a statement to defend myself. I am not financially interested, nor do I have a personal beneficial interest, either directly or indirectly, in the interlocal agreement or the Jonesboro lease arrangement for their school. However, I do represent the town of Jonesboro, the town attorney, and that relationship may lead some to infer that the tax fund vote on measures before this submission. Tonight, therefore, I'm disclosing my representation of the county, although my vote would be based on my independent and impartial analysis of the issues and transparency. My decision tonight is to recuse myself from voting this measure. I will participate tonight as representative of the town of Jonesboro if I'm needed for information.
Right. Do we have a motion? Motion made by Commissioner Fitzgerald, seconded by Commissioner Jones. Discussion? Commissioner Carriger?
Just a couple of observations to make that, if, I guess the total obligation that the county's committing here is about $60 million, if I've done my math right. In leases, I think that's about, just a comment on that. And I guess it's going to have to be borrowed money for the town of Jonesboro. I guess they're going to be borrowing it now. Well, I guess our credit, the county's credit rating is a part of this process.
Mayor, I'll let you answer that since you are the chief
Do
financial
they use
officer.
our credit rating to help with the rate?
Well, it's rural development, so those rates are
Oh,
set
that's right.
regardless.
Yeah, I stand correct. It's fixed at 2.5%, isn't it?
It's 2.25, yes, sir.
Do we know if rural development has committed to this, or will they commit to this additional?
They committed to the additional at the rate of 2.25.
Okay, good deal.
I think we still have a few questions left. Commissioner Jones?
I'm wearing it out tonight. I do want to just comment, I'm the liaison for our commission to the design committee and have really appreciated working with the town on this project, and just feel for all of us dealing with the fallout of a pandemic that, has dashed so many plans. And this is yet another one where, the cost of construction has increased by about 30%, and that's what we're looking at tonight. And it's unfortunate, but it's also consistent with what is happening everywhere. And I'll just say, for my part, having sat in on the design committee meetings, having read the materials that Mr. Browning prepares very diligently, the work that's gone into the design and preparation for this project so far has been phenomenal, incredibly detailed, very well done, and I feel really good about the project and how many people have worked. This isn't something that a couple of folks have put together. This has been a true, community input, collaboration, go back and check again kind of deal, and it has so much forward momentum that I'm glad we can just keep it moving.
Right. Any other questions? Commissioner Ford's going to call the question in a minute if you don't have any more questions. Okay, absolutely, Commissioner, go ahead. Oh, I thought there was opposition to it. No, you go ahead.
I just wondered if construction going to start immediately, or is it going to have to be wait a while, or can we get up and get on the road and that?
If y'all approve this tonight, it goes to the board of the mayor and all tomorrow night, and the grading contractor will mobilize Monday.
All right. Now can you call the question? All right. Seeing no more questions, and Commissioner Ford called the question a while ago. Madam Clerk, if you'll switch us to the voting screen, please. Go ahead and cast your vote and lock it in. Madam Clerk, if you'll announce the vote. 11 yes, 2 no, 2 absent, and the resolution passes. All right, Commissioner Wheeler? All right. All right, seeing no questions, we'll move right on into some more business. Next item is our notaries. The Resolution 210922 is a resolution approving the election of notaries public for appointment or reappointment for Washington County, Tennessee. Have a motion? Motion made by Commissioner Carriger, seconded by Commissioner Huffine to approve the resolution. All those in favor of that motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Wait a minute. We got to switch to the voting screen. I'm sorry. It's a resolution. Madam Clerk, if you'll switch us to the voting screen, please. Go ahead and cast your vote and lock it in. Commissioner Fitzgerald? All right. Madam Clerk, if you announce the vote, 14 yes. The resolution passes with 1 absent. All right. Also, we need to accept the resignation of Sheriff Ed Graybill. I think that's, you all have the opportunity to view that resignation. Have a motion? to accept the resignation? Motion made by Commissioner Ford, second by Commissioner Fitzgerald to accept the resignation of Sheriff Gray. Bill had been previously sent to you. Any questions or discussion? Now, before you leave, we have a packet and a timeline to hand out to you tonight. So if there is any questions about our appointment and the process it takes with this appointment, a lot of this timeline was set by post. So if we'll go ahead and make this motion and get this out of the way, I want to let Allison address those few items as we hand these out. So we have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion or questions on the resignation? Question's been called. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, like sign. All right. Allison, if you want to cover this, or you want to, Sheriff, will you hand these out for us? And I don't expect you to sit here and read all this, but I'm just going to have Allison cover it as we go. Okay, Allison,
All
you're
right,
on now.
I'm just going to give you the highlights of this, but before I do, if I could ask you for another motion. The county clerk is required to provide you with written notice of your obligation to fill this vacancy under TCA 55111. And so I would just ask that you take another vote to waive that, which you can do because you are being informed now about filling this vacancy, and that would be something good to have on record so that your clerk doesn't have to send you that letter. So, Mr. Chairman, if I may request that the commission take that motion waiving the county clerk's requirement to notify the commission of its obligation to fill this vacancy.
Absolutely. Motion made by Commissioner Huffine, seconded by Commissioner Carriger. Any questions or discussion? Question's been called. All in favor of the motion to waive the clerk notice signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, like sign. And
Thank you, Commissioners.
the motion passes.
Excuse me, Mr.
No, go
Chairman. What you have in front of you is a very short two-page memo. As Chairman Matherly said, this appointment, and when you think of it in the past few years as a body, you have appointed a member of the legislative body, one of your commissioners when there was a vacancy. You have appointed a sessions court judge when there was a vacancy. So now, under the same article of the Constitution and the same statute, you have the authority to appoint a sheriff in the event of a vacancy. However, the sheriff does have different qualifications under the Tennessee Code, and the Tennessee Peace Officer Standards and Training Commission, which is referred to as POST, handles that across the state. And so this memo has been worked out with the assistance of POST. What's important for you to see here is this timeline of dates. And then there's probably a lot of other questions you may have, but those I would say might be best served for another day. This is about the filling of the vacancy in and of itself. And also, I would just like to remind you that because it's an appointment and not an election, these packets of information that are referenced in the memo, which includes, I think, 3, 4, 5, maybe 6, 7 documents that the applicants will pick up, are available at the county clerk's office. This is not for the ballot. This is an appointment through you, the legislative body. So that packet of information will be available at the county clerk's office tomorrow at 8 a.m. And then you've got the deadlines that an applicant would follow, and then the date that you will have this on your agenda, which is November 22nd. So just to be really clear, only the county clerk will have this application packet for candidates. That is the sole Washington County office that will be providing them. So the county will provide all applicants with the information at the same time through the same office, which is tomorrow morning at 8. And if you have any questions about this process or the qualifications or your role as a commissioner in this vetting process or anything like that, just reach out to me with a particular question, and I'd be happy to help. Or if you have a question tonight, but I think it's pretty straightforward. You might want to read this first and then revisit it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Alice, for all your hard work on that, and I know dealing with post and CTAS has been some type of a job, but I appreciate you leading the charge on that and getting us all set to go here tonight. Is there any questions or any other new business we need to take a look at? Sherry, is there anything that we have forgotten? All right. Yes, committees meet next week. Purchasing and Beer Board are canceled. The cutoff date and time for next month's County Commission agenda is Thursday, August the 14th at 12 noon. Firm. We, as you can see, we had a big agenda this month, and thank you, Teresa, for really carrying our water for us this month. I appreciate you doing that. And then Allison picked up the ball after Teresa left, and we had a really good time. But I appreciate everybody's extra hard work, and Sherry and Susan for all you do. But do we have a motion to adjourn? Motion made to adjourn. Second. All right. Motion made by Commissioner Carriger, second by Commissioner Lott to adjourn. All in favor of